Your Excellency, Your Excellency, Fatima Haram Asil, Commissioner, African Union. Can I have the voice? Thank you. African Union Commission, honorable ministers and deputy ministers, any, but I'm sure our political leadership is still coming. Honorable members of parliament and present, representatives of cooperating partners, in a couple of representatives of the African Union Commission, United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, and the African Minerals Development Center. Looks like this is better now.
Yeah.
Representatives of development partners, civil society organizations, the MDC implementing partners, that's already mentioned, the African Union Commission, the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, UNDP and the African Development Bank, the leadership of MIASA, the leadership of the Chambers of Mines on the African continent, and I know a couple of them are at the mining in Indaba. I'm sure they'll be joining us. Captains of industry, esteemed participants, as we call it here, all protocol observed. I would like to most sincerely and to welcome you, warmly welcome you to this dinner dialogue. This is the first of its kind, and we are hoping that as we move on, this will become a permanent feature in the mining Indaba. This dinner dialogue has been sponsored by the African Union Commission, and essentially the objective, we are here to discuss and to dialogue the shared benefits of implementing the African mining vision. Now obviously when we talk of implementing the African mining vision and the shared benefits, there has got to be, it's an assumption that everybody understands what these shared benefits are. But before I come to that, let me quickly introduce myself. Weston Malango is my name. I'm the CEO of the Chamber of Mines of Namibia, and for this evening, I'm your moderator. Now, coming back to the purpose, I'm saying that the African mining vision, for us to be able to see and discuss and dialogue the shared benefits of implementing, it is assumed that both sides of the coin, both parties, understand what the African mining vision is all about. What is the African mining vision is a document which is owned by the African government. It's a continental document, a blueprint to take Africa forward. I think the question is the private sector as well on the same wavelength? And I think that's the purpose of this evening, is for us to ensure that we are talking the same thing, because if there is a shared benefits, then there will be a purpose, then everybody will be on board. Otherwise, if the private sector don't see any need to participate, I think it becomes very difficult for African governments to actually implement the African mining vision, because the private sector will not be on board. And I think, in a way, this is at the same time is a marketing event for the African mining vision. Having said that, we've got quite an elaborate program for which, as the title is saying, this is a dinner dialogue. So therefore, it is a working dinner. It is not I'm sorry for that. I know you've had a very long and hectic day, but really we are here basically to do, but I want you to relax. We're going to do all this in a relaxed format, which is very important. You've had a hectic schedule. We're going to do it in a very relaxed format, but at the same time, we want to prod you and to see really what are the shared benefits. At this juncture, let me first of all acknowledge, as I mentioned, I'll be acknowledging our policy makers as they come in. Let me acknowledge the presence of Honorable Peter Lokeris. He is the Minister of State for Mines, in Uganda. Minister, welcome. And then I can see some private sector representatives, the CEO of the Chamber of Mines of Ghana just walked in. I've seen David Noko here just walked in. I'm putting so much pressure on him to attend this debate and give us the may I recognize for one that the Honorable Minister of Mines from Mali has just walked in. Yes. Protocol-wise, I must have his name. Yes. Honorable Omar Hamadou Chiana, Honorable Minister, welcome. I think actually apologies because you've been around. I was just not, reminded that the minister's here. Sincere apologies. Thank you for your understanding. Well, then, according to my time, we need to move on, and I can assure you, after all, this is an inaugural event, and I've just assured you that the mining endeavor itself is the largest event in mining. It's the largest mining investment conference in the world, and that happens to be on the continent of Africa, which is correctly so. The mining endeavor bringing the whole world to South Africa, to Cape Town, to discuss, to look at investment opportunities in Africa, I think it's just the right place for this event to take place, because at the end of the day, we can talk of all the money, all the investments that is coming to Africa, but it has got to be guided by the right policies. And those right policies, as it is now, Africa is being guided on the roadmap to development, to industrialization, by the Africa Mining Vision, which we are promoting today, and hence this dinner dialogue, as I've mentioned. So therefore, without much ado, we thought in our program that I think it's important to set the scene. As I alluded to, this is a government Africa continental document, Africa Mining Vision. How much of that does the private sector know? Are they aware of that? And that's why we thought we should set the scene, we should do the scene setting by a short presentation on what Africa Mining Vision is all about. And then the other items can follow. So at this juncture, let me call upon Dr. Kojo to come and let me call upon Dr. Kojo Busia from the Interim Director at the African Minerals Development Center, MDC, to come and give this short presentation. He has asked me to start from there, which is, I think, is much more comfortable. He can look at the slides, he can also look at you anyway. And I think with that, Kojo, the floor is yours. Please take us through. Yes, you are going to leave the mic. Let's give Kojo a round of applause.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As the Master of Ceremonies said, this is just a refresher course, if you like. I'm sure all of us know what African Mining Vision is all about. This is just to refresh our minds about some of the fundamental objectives and goals of the vision, how it relates to the purpose of the dinner this evening, which is shared benefits of the vision. The African Mining Vision was adopted by the heads of states and governments in Africa in 2009. Its primary goal is transparent, equitable, and optimal exploitation of mineral resources to underpin broad-based sustainable growth and socio-economic development. It seeks to integrate Africa's mineral sector into the continent's social and economic development process, a blueprint for minerals-led development. Here we have a chart of the main principles for development which the AMV seeks to achieve. It's a bit blurred from here, but as you can see, the first one is to seek a diversified and competitive industry and economic and social, with broad economic and social linkages. This is a core contribution of the AMV. In fact, it departs from traditional approaches to mining on the continent over the last several decades. The issue of linkages, I think we ought to be reminded, is a fundamental contribution of the African mining vision to mining in the 21st century in Africa. It also has a governance dimension. It seeks a transparent, accountable sector with optimized realization of mineral rents, as well as those rents being deployed into social and economic development purposes. There is an aspect of good governance, which is rooted in development, issues of transparency and accountability, but also communities and citizens will participate in assets ownership and equity, which is distributed fairly and equitably among all citizens, both within communities close to mining, but also the general population at large. The AMV does not neglect the artisanal mining sector, a major dimension of mining in the continent. It seeks to improve artisanal mining through improvements in rural livelihoods by integrating into rural and national economy this extremely formidable subsector of the mining on our continent. Of course, the African Mining Vision seeks to mitigate the environmental and social effects or impacts of mining on communities. Therefore, it seeks an environmental and social responsibility. And finally, the AMV seeks to promote and build the institutional capacities, knowledge, in the economy at all levels of the mining value chain. So these are the fundamental principles that guide the African mining vision. For the purposes of tonight, we are going to probe into the whole concept of shared values. Shared value for government and citizens in the form of improved socioeconomic outcomes with mining, but also for the private sector, the key driver of the mining industry, to improve related core business performance, but also in a way that it decreases operational cost, enhances productivity, improves shareholder value return, and also predictable and stable business environment. Now, some of the shared benefits in implementing the AMV. If Africa were to implement the AMV 30 years from now, or even less, what will be the collective shared value for both private sector, government, as well as citizens? Mineral policy and fiscal regimes align to the AMV tenets through country mining vision processes. Building the human capacity, providing local employment, and investing in enterprise development. The whole issue of entrepreneurship, local communities, through local content and other similar procurement policies. The need to invest in infrastructure for shared use, not just by the mining industry, but also by linked other sectors, agriculture, IT, and so on. if the AMV were implemented, transparency and accountability will lead to improvements in disclosure of standards among different actors within the sector. Of course, the issue of environmental and social responsibility will still be adhered to. And of course, the AMV seeks to redefine the meaning of corporate social responsibility. No longer will CSR be a philanthropy, but will be an integral part of the developmental agenda of the industry. Then AMV will embrace a collaborative approach towards multi-stakeholder engagements, which is highly embedded and advocated by the country mining visions. So, with these fundamental principles and pillars of the AMV, tonight we seek to discuss the possibility of a compact between the African mining vision and business leaders who are gathered here tonight for this discussion. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Kojo. I think you have just elaborated now in very few slides, elaborated what the AMV is all about and what it seeks to achieve. And I think that sets the scene. What we have here is, we thought that the beginning is that, and then we follow it up by a keynote address. And when that keynote address comes, then it becomes very clear as to what is the direction that we are heading as Africa. And at the same time, I keep on probing to the private sector with these principles that we've seen that underpins or the pillars of the AMV. I think we've got to start thinking what is the benefit, what is there for us if we have to cooperate with governments in implementing the African mining vision. I think with that, and without much ado, this is now my privilege to call upon Her Excellency Fatima Haram Assel, the Commissioner from the from AU Commission, to come and provide and give us a keynote address. Fatima, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Program Director. Honorable Ministers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great pleasure to welcome you to the critical dinner dialogue with business leader in Africa extractive sector. Under the theme, Share Benefit in Implementing the Africa Mining Vision, our interaction here this evening will focus on the business imperative for the private sector to robustly engage in a mutually beneficial compact on implementing the Africa Mining Vision. Last year, at the same Mining Indaba venue, the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Dr. Dlamini Zuma, called all to work together to seek partnership of mutual respect to address the urgent needs of the African people. The private sector is a respected part of this partnership. Last month, at the recent concluded African Union Summit, she further called for strengthening of the partnership with the private sector as part of our relentless effort to foster African economic development. Having this high-level meeting here tonight, under the auspice of the African Union Commission, reflect the indispensable role that the private sector is called upon to play in realizing the Africa Mining Vision. The African Union Head of State and Government adopted the African Mining Vision as just stated by Ms. Dr. Kojo in February 2009, with a view to making the mining sector more responsible to African economic and social development needs. To implement the vision, the African Union Head of State and Government in 2012 approved the establishment of the African Mineral Development Center to provide strategic, operational, and coordination support to African Union member states. The center began implementing initial activities in September of 2013. The African Mining Vision envisages a future where the continent's natural resources are used productively and sustainably to the benefit and to all African people. The private sector is an important part of this future. The African Mining Vision covers 6 main areas, including the need for downstream linkages into mineral beneficiation and manufacturing, upstream linkages into mining capital goods, consumable and service industries, linkages into infrastructure, power, logistic, communication, water and skill, and technology development. Mutually beneficial partnership between the state, the private sector, civil society, local communities, and other stakeholders. And finally, a comprehensive knowledge of its mineral endowment, as well as improved governance in the sector. Working together to implement the AMV is not just about doing the right thing or business doing good deeds. It's also good business because the AMV implementation will produce concrete benefit for the private sector. Through the implementation of the AMV, private sector will benefit from longer-term predictability and stability in an enabling socio-political and regulatory environment. Aligned with the AMV, cost saving and competitiveness would result from workforce planning with local development of a skilled workforce, which will help businesses to reduce the need for hiring from abroad. Similarly, the development of local linkages and supply chains will facilitate local production of inputs needed for imports and foreign exchange, thus removing business competitiveness and cost structures. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, these are just few examples that illustrate the business imperative for the private sector to actively engage in a compact on implementing the African Mining Vision. I am sure you will also agree with me that engaging in this compact is neither about charity nor handouts. It's a response to a clear need for the private sector to adapt to the changing times as African governments assertively demonstrate their resolve for our people to obtain a more equitable share of our mineral wealth. It's no longer a question of if and or when. It is now a question of how best to proceed in a manner that is mutually beneficial for all of us. It is in this vein that we're announcing that the initiative to establish the network of African Chamber of Mines and Mining Association, as we believe that these are critical platforms for more effective engagement with the private sector and other key stakeholders such as women. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I would like to thank the private sector for its effort and collaboration on various different aspects relating to socio-economic development, in the spite of understanding concrete actions that actualize the conversation we have had over the past years about the African mining vision. I'm very much looking forward to the result of our deliberation here tonight. There is only one direction for us to go, and that's the way forward. Thank you very much.
I think at this juncture, let's have another, I'm calling for an intervention from the private sector. And if I may pick on, yes, I can see somebody is pointing the fingers there. At this juncture, it is my pleasure to call upon a good friend of mine, David Noko. David Noko is the Executive Vice President, Sustainability of AngloGold Ashanti. And ladies and gentlemen, AngloGold Ashanti is not a small business. It's a continental business. So may I call David to give his intervention. I think the microphone is over there. You may wish to stand from where you are. Yes.
I don't think it will make a difference. But I will try. Thank you, Program Director. Let me start off by saying it is very pleasing to see that actually there are no divergent ideas here or divergent views. In fact, there is more convergence than there is divergence. The few points I would like to make is that it is business in general, and mining by its nature normally lives side by side with communities, and we operate businesses that are not fortunate enough to be based in cities, and in the areas where we go, we in some manner or in many ways are expected to be engaged in development of infrastructure. We've got to be self-sufficient in many ways, and there are examples of areas where to operate in we need to be established our own farming businesses so that we can continue to be self-sufficient, mainly because we operate in far-flung areas. In most cases it's difficult to receive supplies, the supplies in many ways. So there is more convergence, and in fact, there is absolutely no contest here. Even in our strategy, we subscribe to the concept of coexistence harmoniously. AngloGold Ashanti subscribes to the concepts of shared benefits. And I'm looking at now going forward, I do concede that in many ways the industry, and in some cases there are instances where one can cite examples where our own company has had a not so positive legacy in some jurisdictions, and all of that we note, but frankly, in our strategy, we are clear and conscious that as business, we are and subscribe to the principle that we must be true citizens in all jurisdictions or countries wherein we are hosted. We do not want to be temporary sojourners or passers-by. And to be a true citizen, you really got to be a true citizen by all means. That means you live in that society, you contribute to society, and you benefit from society as well, like any member of society. So those are the principles that we subscribe to. There are, however, certain needs, and in most cases, of course, these needs appear to be creating some form of tension. And these needs are informed by the fact that there are expectations from all parties, be it the investors, be it the host communities, be it the host government, their expectations. And where there is those expectations may be beyond reach, the tensions will arise. I think what has not happened has always been the process of engagement, absolute transparencies, and continuous engagement, so that we all understand each other and we can act, we do meet each other's requirements. And some other aspects relate to the fact that we will always be like any other business. We always are driven by the need to demonstrate that our bottom line continues to increase. And in some cases, of course, that becomes a source of tension, because I think greed is inherent in business. We always want to make more. And we are mindful of those areas. Let me just cite a few areas where there is huge opportunities for benefits, especially for the continent of Africa. As AngloGold Ashanti, we operate in almost 4 continents in the world, and we have good experiences, and the continent of Africa it lags behind in terms of benefits that must flow into the continent. And this talks to the supply chain area. I think if we focus primarily on the supply chain area, local production of parts and local supplies, generally that is the area where I think that Africa will benefit far more than look in the areas of taxation, royalties. The supply chain area will grow our economies in multiples compared to simply harvesting out of royalties and taxes. Then the last point I want to make relates to the point that I alluded to in this session yesterday, where I spoke to, and I obviously referred to the Honorable Minister from Uganda will recall that I mentioned the idea of localized investments. I think I need to put this point in perspective. It is true that as Africans, most of us are coming to the cities from far-flung villages. And come holidays in December, Christmas holidays, we talk of going home. And what it means is that I come to work, I harvest, I save, and then I take most of the things that I've gained with me home. There is no doubt that foreign investors do the same. They would come into the country, make money, and in most cases expatriate all the profits, having paid taxes. But if those owners lived in those different countries, the behavior would be different, because they would be investing in the countries wherein they live. And I'm not suggesting by any means that foreign investment is faulty or but it's got its own downside. So we need a balance. So the point I'm making is that we've got to be driving for a larger portion of local ownership, and then we will have a balance. Thank you very much.
Very good. David, thanks very much for that insight, and I think I'm so happy our policymakers are here, because really you've touched on something which is many times overlooked. This local content. I mean, if you're going to have a $5 billion US investment, and then all the inputs in terms of mining inputs, supplies and services are going to come from Europe and not from within the host country, we are losing an opportunity for enhanced benefits to the host country. When I hear this, and obviously, I think Noko, the local content you're talking, obviously, to the upstream, industries that we need to have them localized. And perhaps, ministers, since we're talking of the shared benefit, this is one area you may wish, and I think even with ourselves as private sector, we can discuss and see how we take this thing forward. I don't know, you may want to put in policy interventions so that when you've got large investments, those investments, you make them conditional that, and as far as possible, they use the local content. And I think, one thing you've said, David, struck me is that you're saying, I think we are losing an opportunity here that perhaps our governments, we concentrate on the taxes alone and we miss out on that. It's a really good food for thought, that's what I thought. I think on that note, let's move on. I'll ask, at this juncture, please, with your permission, I want to ask the short intervention from Honorable Minister, Honorable Nee Mills, the Minister of Land and Natural Resources, Ghana, just to give us his reflections on this matter. Minister, please speak from your seat here.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody, again. If you permit me, I will first like to touch on the issue of local content, because you said African governments ought to look at it. We've done that in Ghana, actually. We have a law on local content, and we lose trying to enforce it. It's a policy, and it's also in the law, such that currently we have a list of 8, if you like, areas where local content rules make it compulsory for mining companies and other investors to use the services and the supplies locally. For example, grinding material, for example, cement and cement products, abrasives, and a host up to 8 in all. Electrical cables, for example, because the mines use a lot of that. So we have that very much in hand, and I would encourage other countries who don't have such rules to quickly have them. Very crucial. It's been very useful for us in Ghana. In fact, we keep expanding the list. We've gone up to 8. We're expanding it further still. And I would like to comment more further by saying that you said large investments. We don't look at it as such. We just say that you invest, you use local content. Right. Yeah, right, that's it. Further, I would like to say this, that for me, just as for David, shared values, David Noko, last speaker, shared values involve not just local content, but we also take an advantage to do other things when investors are with us. But I like to say that investors, when they make huge profits, ought to set some aside, especially mining companies, because a day of reckoning will come when you need to, restore the landscape, do reclamation and so on. If you take everything home with you at Christmas, as I suggest, then later on in the new year, you may find that you need to go and borrow. I think we should look at that when we are doing our investments and we are reaping very high profits. I think this is also why some African governments think of shared, values or shared investments have tried to impose all kinds of laws where super profits are made. They try to take some of it, but again, that's a very dangerous area to tread. But my main intervention is this. I think that when it comes to social responsibility, there again we can have a lot of shared values. In the sense that the investor, the mining companies, ought to take social responsibilities issues very, very seriously, because for us in Ghana, for example, it's compulsory that the investor, the mining company, enters into a social responsibility pact, as it were. It's compulsory. And at that level, at that stage, it's important for the community and the investor to engage so that it's clear what the responsibilities are, and then the investor must set out to carry out that responsibility. For example, they need a school, for example, they need scholarships, because after mining or during mining, the end result would be that the community benefits from the scholarships, and then they can look for alternative livelihoods because they may be moved to make way for mining, for example. And then again, infrastructure, roads, clinics, hospitals, which will endure and remain after mining is over. I think those are areas that we should critically ensure that mining companies quickly provide for as much as possible, within the context, of course, of the needs of the community and the needs as expressed by the community to the mining company. It's supposed to be a short one, so perhaps I should rest. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you very much. Honourable Minister, I think what you're saying is vindicates what David said. David, you said we have got more convergent views than divergent views, meaning that the private sector and our governments, we are basically have got the same objectives. We want to move in the right direction. And I think, Minister, you're spot on, and I'm very happy to hear that Ghana has set the bar very high. So now I think my colleagues at the MDC, I always believe that we do not have to reinvent the wheel. I think in Africa, we are also very popular for that, reinventing the wheel. If it has been done successfully in another country, why don't we emulate that? I think that's this is a very interesting discussion. I think on this note, let me then call, I've got two more from the private sector. Let me call my brother over there, and let me call Ben Magara. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Lonmin. I think many of you that were in the session yesterday, when we had the ministerial symposium, I think you recall that Ben was so vibrant, such that last night I had to hunt for him literally to make sure that he's present in this session, because I realize we will have a lot of benefit, from his interventions. And by the way, it's actually last night that I also managed to hunt for David Nok. It was around 23 hours, 24 hours, I was bothering him with the SMS, begging him to be here. Gentlemen, I mean, this is a commitment which I'm so humbled that you've done. So Ben, the floor is yours. You can speak from there if you want to stand, but you don't have to come here. Please, the microphone. You may want to stand. For the sake of the ministers, they need to hear your message.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I think I will try and change gear a bit and possibly bring in some aspects of what we can do going forward. I think the comments from the minister and from David are very clear around we're all on the same page. We all really realizing the need to converge, and we all realize the need to collaborate, and we all seem to be singing the same hymn there. So what's getting in the way is, I think, possibly helping us to change that gear. Because when I look at it, we're all speaking the same language. I think one of the biggest benefits we have tonight, and I wish there were clear rules, that there are Chatham rules in this place, so that we can really have some honest debates as Africans together. Because my stakeholders are government, communities, customers, suppliers, civil society, and stakeholders and shareholders, not just shareholders. And I think really in looking at that, we have battled with understanding what is that shared value. For all of them to get the sense that this Lonmin is an active player and contributor to society, as Minister spoke about the family feel of it. And it's fair to highlight again, as I said yesterday, that not all mining companies are responsible mining companies. And not all countries are putting the responsible, or not all governments are putting responsible policies in place. Just like mining companies are not all mining companies. So for that reason, we are generalizing what the challenges are, and we are making some stereotypes about what those issues are. So those who are doing well, please forgive it. But those who are not, please learn from others, whether you're mining companies or your governments. So for me, Lonmin is a FTSE 250 company. It's the third largest platinum mining company in the world. And I joined them 18 months ago. We had a 5-month strike last year that crippled the whole industry. Before that, you might remember, those who might know the 2012 when we lost 44 of our miners. In the week, that really changed our lives, as we put it. But on reflecting on what needs to be done and finding shared value for everybody, we went around a journey of making sure we could understand what each employee is doing, what each society is thinking about, and where government is. And I think there's no doubt that, as David said, we have legacy issues. And you can ask for excuses and you can explain them. The reality is, if we must draw a line and move ahead and improve the lot of our employees, the lot of our communities, because if we don't do that, we have no sustainable businesses. And we have gone through 5 months to be able to tell you that if we forget one stakeholder, it's not a sustainable business. So we've gone through every step to understand it. And in host communities, as companies, we say, I'm paying royalties, I'm paying taxes. Why should I worry about bulk services? Because the government is there. But unfortunately, when it's not done, my production stops. Full stop. So if there's one step I'm looking to, as we engage in collaboration, is not to suffer in action. Because the poor out there, when their tummy talks, it's not sustainable. So what actions are we really putting together to get it done? We have royalties, we have taxes, and we are able to do some corporate social investment, but in reality, we must all put our minds together about when the platinum prices are down or commodity prices are down, what does the government chip in with? What does the business chip in with? Because together we benefited when the boom was on. How do we actually tangibly drive for that? So for me, I think I'm really wanting to talk about we need a predictable environment, both from labor, from our society and communities, and from the legislation. Because as we said, mining takes 15 to 20 years, pumping capital in before you get anything. If legislation changes halfway, the business model you created to start that mine no longer works. So let's move into creating plans of creating shared value so that we can all benefit. And one last one for me is, as Africa, let's get ready. I've been in the mining industry for 26 years. We have seen these cycles before. Are we ready for the next cycle? As we think of collaboration, as we think of policies, are we ready for the next cycle? And whether it's governments, I think the quicker we work together with business and formulate these policies together, the quicker we'll be ready for the next boom, because it's a cycle and that boom is coming. Thank you very much.
Ben, thanks very much. And yes, that's typical of Ben. He calls the spade a spade. I mean, you're so bold that you're able to announce here, and very rightly so, that yes, as private sector, we also have bad eggs amongst ourselves. Not every miner is a miner. We know the whole story. I think that's very much appreciated, and colleagues, I think take note. This is very serious and I think very, very exciting stuff. Very quickly, I know I don't want to bore you, but I think perhaps as a moderator, I'm so excited actually that, and I hope you're feeling the same thing, because the music, what I'm getting here, I don't often hear this in a platform where we've got a dialogue like this. The Honourable Minister, you want to say something? Oh, the Minister wants to chip in very quickly to Ben's very blunt remarks.
Yes, I think Ben was worried where I was saying we may not engage ourselves. But I did say that when you are organizing to come and engage in a very big venture, maybe the capital is huge, that's why we are unable. But through advertisements, if some of us are able to put their resources together and win a venture contract, no problem, even if you are indigenous. But there is one thing you have said, maybe you didn't get from me. I talked about the legal framework. We are lucky, we are making our laws when Ghana was making theirs. And we would go to them, we would also give them some ideas, and then we have come together. So what we have done is, in our law, we have put there the issue of very local content to stand out, and we have made regulations. So when a company wants to import anything or to do any venture, it must advertise, and we come and look at what type of goods do you want to import. If these things are available in the country, how can you say I'm going to import rice from China? I'm going to bring onions from America. That one we shall cancel. We know what is supposed to be given to the people to transport goods from the sea, from Mombasa to Kampala. You cannot bring somebody from. So as our local content issue and regulations guiding is very, very strict. That that is for local people. But also, we also tell the companies that when you come in, most of these things are recoverable costs. If you just allow them to do everything together, and tomorrow, even if they say now it is their money, tomorrow they will recover this money from you. And therefore we must share this money, because in the long run it is for the country. Otherwise nobody would have come there. So we don't have to depend only on royalties. No, we have also to look at what you call this money you want to take out. First of all, you must all the time know beforehand how much have they invested, have they injected in, and approve, so that you know this has come, and so that you are able to know tomorrow what type of gains they have made, so that you tax. In our law, the gains tax, we impose 30%, and maybe you have been hearing us in courts of law with some companies wanting not to pay at all. Say, but you came with nothing. Now you have put this one, but you have given you that one, you recover. But this one is the difference. Why don't you give us the difference? They say our shareholders will get annoyed. And we say, how about our shareholders? The ones I've told you. Yes. They will also get annoyed. And these are the things we must put there. Because how can people hear that somebody has come and has farmed out an oil field and has made a huge difference of $150 or maybe $1 million, and you are walking away with all of it? What will the shareholder in the country say? So we say, you are just giving us only 30%. We have taken away the royalties. The others of yours has accounted for recovery because even to get that 30, it must be clear in the law. So I'm with you. Don't get scared. We are looking after our people very well. Thank you very much.
Very good.
Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. As Weston just put it, we in Southern Africa have an organized body called MIASA, Mining Industry Association of Southern Africa. And I think in the African vision, for African vision to succeed, it says that to ensure implementation of the African mining vision, an explicit agreement between AU's member states and business leaders in the extractive industries in Africa on what constitutes shared benefits in implementing the MV is necessary. And I think to achieve that, of course, the AU member states must talk to an organized body. It's already difficult in one country to organize Chamber of Mines. Not all the mining companies are members of the Chamber of Mines. But if AU members must achieve the African mining vision, they have to speak to organized body. And I think as we have it in the Southern African, I think it's important also to have Eastern body, Western body, and Northern body, so that at least the shared benefit, the experience will be shared. When all countries in Africa, they don't have chambers already. So to take it further, it will need African countries to organize, first of all, itself in Chamber of Mines, and then take the issue at a regional body so that we can all share experience, share issues, and then we can achieve whatever we're looking for 2063 to achieve the mining, the African vision in mining. That's very important. I think we are trying our best within the MIASA group to share our experience, to share our ideas, to share the issues within the member state. And for your information, the MIASA is DRC, Zambia, Namibia, Botswana, South Africa, Madagascar, here, Tanzania. I hope I haven't forgotten one. But already we have Zambia, of course, Zimbabwe, Zambia, of course. So it's already a well-organized body, and I think it's important so that we can advise our different ministers what lesson we are learning for each other, how we can harmonize legislation in mining, which is important, because right now what we see is each and every country in Africa takes its own legislation on, let's say, on tax. And most of the time what we found out is the same mining companies is operating in DRC, for example, and the same also in Zambia. In DRC we'll be paying, I don't know, that's an example, 6% on royalties. In Zambia it will be 15 or 20. So those big gaps will lead the mining company to divest in one country or stay to another and things like that. So we need to, I think it's important if we want to achieve this vision to try to harmonize our legislation so that we can take benefit the maximum of our minerals. Thank you. That was just my input on African mining.
Simon, thanks very much. I think the message is very clear, and obviously I'm very happy that the undertaking has been made that the chambers of mines in Africa are ready, more than ready, to support the implementation of the African Mining Vision. I think that's the main message here. We are now, I think, getting closer to the concluding on my program. But before I really conclude, but I think now it's the right time that, or no, perhaps let me give just 1 minute. We put in a couple of questions on the table. Obviously, these are now supplementary questions to see if, to ensure that we do not miss out on the thinking and picking up on your wisdom. So we try to prod on those various questions. If there's any interventions from the table on those, this is the right time to do that. And I'm seeing the 2 hands. Madam Minister, let me first of all give the chance from at the back and then to yourself.
Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce a slightly different dimension to the discussion. Let us assume that you have a mine which is a really good neighbor.
Sorry, sir, your introduction?
Professor Ben Turod from the Institute for African Alternatives.
Thank you.
Former Member of Parliament in South Africa, but no longer.
Right.
Assuming that we have a mine which is really a good neighbor and looks after the community and does all the social responsibility that we're talking about, what happens when the resources of the mine are depleted? So, being kind to your community and looking after your community isn't enough. And I think what's missing in the discussion is any sense, which is in the African Mining Vision, any sense that the mining industry is actually related to the rest of the economy and should be integrated fully. So it's not just about the community, it's not just about paying taxes. It's the relationship of a very powerful sector of the economy to the rest of the economy. And this is where the African Mining Vision actually goes. So if the discussion here misses that, we cannot have a mine or a mining industry as an island, self-sustainable within an economy, even if it observes all the rules about taxation, about being good to the community and so on. So I think we really need to ensure that people understand that the African Mining Vision is about transforming the economy of Africa and not just being nice to people on the ground or even their employees. It's a bigger picture. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There isn't, really thanks for that intervention. There isn't anything to add because I think you're just spot on. I don't think the mining industry wants to be seen as a Father Christmas in perpetuity because when the mines close, then of course what happens to the community? And that's why there's got to be that talk of sustainability. What happened? There's got to be sustainability after the mine is gone because the mine will never be there forever. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much for that one. You should have invested in a long-term infrastructure. Thank you very much. For the other one is, somebody has called me, says, you will get the royalties, you will go to central governments. How about the communities? In the readings, there are 2 types of administration in the world. There is centralized administration, where central government decides how much goes to a certain area, maybe following the size of the area, or the population, or plus that. Then there are decentralized governments, which are now obtained in Africa. Like the countries like mine, there is decentralization. And what we are doing ourselves is, when we get the royalties, we divide the royalties. Because we know the communities living there, where the activity is taking place, are really getting the brunt of all the nonsense of the activities in the area. I talked about the hazardous, things like cuttings and so on, pollution, noise, and so on. And also there are the policemen and women of that area. So what we do is we should think of getting a portion for the centralized government for the country, maybe another one for another set of the decentralized administration, until a percentage reaches to these people. Reasons: if these people who are host communities get annoyed because of the fragility of what we are doing down there, they can cause a problem. You have heard in some areas why they cut even the oil pipes. It is because people are saying other people are getting rich, we are remaining as we are. And somebody goes to organize them. They don't want the infrastructure. They cause a problem. And then the acidity, which is there. So maybe we can say we should adopt a policy where all these things are decentralized according to the legal regime obtaining in a country. In case of ours, we have got central government, we have got what we call a district, there is a percentage, then we have got the community itself, so that everybody owns the system, and that will be okay. I was trying to respond to the, really, it is the real worry. One of the participants said, now we are looking after all that, the IEC loan, how about that one? And that one is the most stubborn person who should be looked after, and rightly so, deserves some kind of recognition. And also I thought I was talking to Her Excellency, I said, now you are listening to these things which we're discussing about. Some of them are at your docket. To try to harmonize the legislative framework of Africa, so that there is nobody who thinks the other one is worse and this one is better. So everything should be done very well, so that we look at Africa as a continent. This one I've thrown to her quietly. I hope thank you very much.
Very good. I can see the network is very effective here. And then just in concluding, I think over this dialogue very quickly, obviously if you look at your documentation on the table, ideally, initially, and we've already mentioned this actually in the keynote address, it was mentioned that now we are looking at the process to starting the process of launching or formulating an AMV compact with private sector leaders. That is just the start of the process, starting this year. And then, of course, the process to establish a continental-wide network of the chambers of mines, and I think that has been taken note. And then the third part was, we're talking of, it was envisaged, this is not going to happen today, it has been announced, it was envisaged that perhaps at this event would have launched the Africa Women in Mining Association, which is going to be happening now later on. But since the ladies are here, it is important that we hear their message, and I'm privileged to welcome to the podium Ms. Kweba Melody. She's the CEO of Silver Unicorn Trading, and she's a chairperson of South African Women in Mining Association. In fact, she's a president. And then she's also the president of AWIMA, and AWIMA stands for the Africa Women in Mining Association. Let's just hear her message. We are not launching AWIMA today, but we want to hear their message. And she's here with her counterpart, Kelobon Mokoena. But I'm calling to the podium Ms. Melody Kweba. Is she somewhere? Could you please come and... I think I'm inviting you to the podium.
Her Excellency, Madam Fatima, Honorable Ministers, Chamber of Mines, and the private sector, good evening. Program Director, I find myself in a difficult situation, but allow me to just say all protocol observed. can say. In accepting the African Women in Mining Association, the baby which was born on the 20th of August 2014 in Nairobi, really, while we were in the Business Linkages Forum, we find as ladies that the time has come to unite as African women in mining. I need not forget that this is not about me or my country, South Africa. It is about all African women in the African continent. Each and every one of us who is going to be in the position of leadership in this organization must always and remember that determination, hard work, focus, discipline are the key ingredients for this organization to succeed and serve African women. We recognize efforts that were made earlier to come with an association like this one that will bring all African women in the mining together. That moment, ladies and gentlemen, has arrived, and we really need the support of the ministers and the private sector. It is time for us to celebrate. Our sincere gratitude goes to the African Union for accelerating the process. Mining as an activity or operation, if properly executed, is capable of attracting economic boosters such as agriculture, IT, health services, and many others. My plea to our government and private sector is to help us as these ordinary women and mothers to achieve our goals, using mining as a stepping stone to push back the frontiers of poverty. Program Director, you empower a woman, you empower the nation. I am talking from experience. If it was not of the South African government, we would not have such women like us. We now understand that mining is not an area exclusively meant for men as it was before. We have a holistic as African women where all of us, men, women, youth, people with disabilities, contribute positively to uplift the economies of our various states. We as African Women in Mining Association, we welcome the AU theme 2015, which is Women Empowerment towards Agenda 2063. To all you mining companies, we request, please walk the path with us. I thank you.
Your message is very loud and clear. You educate a woman, you educate a nation, you empower the nation. I think that message, let's give her a round of applause. She spoke from the heart, very convincingly, and actually emotional about the message that she has. Madam, I think the message is very clear, and certainly from what I've been instructed, what I've been told to announce, is that really the initiative that you started in Kenya is very noble. It is something that has been taken on board in the implementation of the African mining vision, and obviously at an appropriate time, then the official launch is going to take place, and certainly that you are going to be advised in due course. Just want to thank you really sincerely for your active participation into all this. I think it was very, very fruitful discussion and the dialogue. So on this note, I hand over to Ms. Fatima Denton. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, moderator. Thank you for getting us to come to terms with, I'd say, two different sciences. The science of eating and the science of holding a dialogue. But I think you would have noticed that he didn't manage to do that actually, because he didn't eat whilst the rest of us were eating. I'd also like to thank all the ministers for being part of this journey. I'd also like to thank you for the transformational agenda that we have started by rewriting this narrative, and also for the Africa that we seek and aspire to. I'd like to thank Commissioner Fatima Harama Sil for her passion, for her vigour in defending many of these issues, and also for her candour in terms of bringing these perspectives to bear. I'd like to thank you all because I think you've been a great part of it. You've brought all the ingredients on the table and you've allowed us, metaphorically and literally, to sample this great meal that we enjoyed today. I'd like to thank all my colleagues at ECA and the AU for tirelessly working on this and for the outcome that we have just achieved. So thank you all. We are approaching the end of this evening, and I guess it's not the end of the dialogue. And I just want to borrow a word in the minerals parlance, which is the word license. I don't think I have the license to go into another long speech, because I think a lot of the things that I would have liked to say have been very eloquently mentioned in the past 2 days. But I would, however, indulge myself and be a little bit greedy because I want to take at least a takeaway, especially given the fact that we've had this really nice meal, but I'd just like to indulge myself further. But before this takeaway, I want to just draw a very quick parallel. And the parallel is the mineral sector, when you think about it, has words like benefits, profits, extractive, exploitation, risk, rents. And if you juxtapose these words with the world that I inhabit, which is the world of environment and climate change, you'll get a completely different sets of words. And these are emissions reductions, equity, adaptation, mitigation. But in essence, both of these worlds are essentially about biophysical processes. And yesterday, I think I had Ben Magara mentioned that the mining industry is a very disruptive industry. And in many ways, climate change is also about a disruption of the Earth system. But I think what is interesting, and that's the end of my parallel, is that we would like to come out of this world, whether that be climate change or mining, with a different issue, a different outcome. In other words, we would like to see how both the mining sector and climate change could actually begin to put the very issue of human security at the core part of its agenda. Because I honestly believe that if we do invest in human security, we will end up having a system that is not going to go bankrupt. So I think the human security element is very important. Now, in terms of my takeaway, I know we've had some very interesting, light-hearted as well as serious discussions, but I just wanted to perhaps say that for me what this is about securing a place for Africa in the world economy. And I think part of what Professor Turot was talking about is very similar to that analogy of ensuring that the benefits of the mineral sector can take all the other sectors along with it. But I also wanted to very quickly refer to this quote from Madame Zuma, which is a quote that I like very much, when she said that we are colonized because of our natural resources. Our current status in the global economy is defined by natural resources, and our future will be determined by the way in which we utilize our natural resources. And I think what I like about the quote is that it joins three essential dots. For me, it's about the past, the present, and the future. And I think yesterday you've all heard when Madame Sil was talking about the fact that all of us have a contribution to play. And I think that contribution starts off with having a new narrative, a new business model, a new social contract. And a social contract that would hold us all accountable to negotiate better contracts for future generations. Because I think if we do get it wrong, our children will ask questions about why we handed them a raw deal and why we mortgaged their lives on contracts that they were not party to and deals that they were not able to benefit from. So I think this is a huge opportunity to use minerals, extractives as a conduit to refine our business model and to move Africa to the center of the world economy. And again, that aspect of surplus, how do we create surplus that would help in financing underperforming sectors like agriculture, like energy. And my last takeaway is basically say that we need to make investments in infrastructure more of a virtuous circle. We need to move away from infrastructure or the absence of infrastructure being a vicious circle to get into a virtuous circle. Infrastructural poverty, as most of you know, has very serious implications for development and for the productive sectors. And I think we need to also start creating infrastructure corridors that can help us transition to energy security and cleaner technologies. And we also need to start promoting beneficiation and local content. When we invest in knowledge infrastructure, transport infrastructure, energy, water infrastructure, we're adding value to our minerals. But as you heard yesterday and today, that adding value does not have to be an exploitative activity. So the departure point for local content is finding a space in which women and men involved in the business can be seen as fundamental actors in the value chain of shared prosperity. And finally, a plea. It'd be great if we could all be part of a coalition. And it's a coalition of hope. Let us all look forward to replenishing this hope with some very tangible actions that are rooted in equity and social justice. And that we can also use profit as a regulator. But most of all, we can also embark on a mission and becoming missionaries of knowledge. And we can mine that knowledge if we work on mineral beneficiation, if we're able to create forward and backward linkages, if we're able to build human and institutional capacity, if we're able to understand the geological reserves that we have, then we'll be having a very rich harvest and one that will ripple through future generations and across broader-based development. Ladies and gentlemen, this really is the opportunity that we must all embrace. Thank you.